We got early box office projections in for the latest Marvel Cinematic Universe film Thunderbolts, and it's not looking too good. Now, Marvel has struggled to make its profit back at the box office these last couple of years with many other movies, and this one looks like it's going to be more of the same. However, there is kind of a silver lining to it that I will get to in a moment, but first, let's dive into this article from Fandom Pulse that's talking about the box office projections and what it could actually mean for the film. Marvel's Thunderbolts expected to perform worse than Captain America Brave New World. Now, the headline right there, I think, sounds a lot worse than what it actually is for Thunderbolts, because one of the worst things about Captain America Brave New World, or as far as its box office potential goes, is that they spent so much money on the movie. And I know people have tried to say like, oh, it was only $180 million. And no, it was actually much more than that. I'm not going to rehash that because that's a subject for another video that I've done in the past. But let me just say that, yeah, the movie cost way more than $180 million. However, Thunderbolts, they say the reported budget for that is around $180 million. And I could actually believe it when it comes to this one, because I've heard from a long time that they were spending less on this one than compared to other movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And there really hasn't been anything happening with the production of this movie to suggest that it's gone over that. So I could believe that it actually is $180 million, which for a movie like that, it probably needs to make around $550 million globally in order to just break even, on a very conservative estimate, most likely closer to the $600 million mark. Now, going by these early box office projections, it's kind of doubtful that it could still hit that mark, but there is the potential for it. But let's look at what it has to say here. Box office expectations look dismal for Marvel's next film, Thunderbolts, with one analyst predicting it will do worse than Captain America Brave New World. Box office analyst Sean Robbins at Box Office Theory predicts that Thunderbolts will only gross between $67 million and $82 million in its domestic opening weekend, with a pinpoint prediction of $76 million. For comparison, Captain America Brave New World had a domestic opening weekend of $88.8 million. That means even on the top end, Thunderbolts is expected to perform worse than Captain America Brave New World. And like I said, it's not necessarily a fair comparison, considering how much more they spent on Captain America Brave New World, because if you had a $20 million movie that opened up to $60 million, you could say like, oh, well, that's opening up worse than Captain America Brave New World. It's like, well, yes, obviously that's worse than it, but it's not bad news for that movie because of the budget is so small. Now, is $180 million opening up to $76 million a good thing? No, this probably needs to make around $100 million domestically during its opening weekend in order to stand a pretty good shot of being successful. Now, it's possible $100 million opening for a movie like this could have a steep drop off and it still loses money for them, but that's a better start. But just because it has a $76 million opening weekend doesn't necessarily mean that the movie is going to be a failure. Just going back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, looking at the numbers here for their box office, there's some movies that have actually gone on to do fairly well with moderate openings. Now, granted, that really hasn't happened in the last couple of years, as you can see from this page here. But scrolling down, because I did see some interesting ones of note. It's been a little while, but I mean, well, Captain Marvel, $153 million opening weekend, $1.1 billion. That's a pretty good start. Ant-Man and the Wasp, $75 million opening weekend, $623 million that it brought in globally. So that would be profitable for that one if Thunderbolts mimicked what we saw with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Spider-Man No Way Home. Okay, that had a massive opening. I did know there was a Spider-Man. Oh, Far From Home. Yeah, that was the one that had kind of a modest opening, relatively modest, $92 million, $1.1 billion globally that it brought in. So you can see, just because even if it had a $76 million opening, it still could end up being a successful movie. A lot of that would ultimately be predicated on the word of mouth. And if people like the movie, if they liked it, then you can actually see a strong hold in it, have some legs underneath it. If they don't, then the movie would probably just have a steep drop off like we've seen with other Marvel movies, and then just end up settling at $450 million range, something that we could probably expect for Captain America Brave New World. Not necessarily, not nearly enough what it needs to break even if it actually did have that $180 million budget. And this is catastrophic for Marvel, talking about the expected box office for it. And Disney, based on a simple commercial return on investment given Captain America Brave New World, is the third worst performing film in the entire history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, only doing better than The Incredible Hulk and The Marvels when you factor in inflation. Not only is Thunderbolts expected to have a worse opening weekend than Captain America Brave New World, but Robbins also predicted the film will only gross a total of between $155 million and $246 million at the domestic box office, with the pinpoint prediction of $219 million. Even if it did a little bit exceed that expectations and grossed $250 million domestically at the box office, and let's assume equal amount internationally, so that's $500 million globally that it brought in on this movie. Like I said, that's not really a good amount for it when you factor in marketing and the theaters taking their cut of it. This movie, a conservative estimate, needed $550 million in order to break even, and that's a little short of that. But let's say this movie actually had good international appeal to it, and it well exceeds these expectations, then the movie could stand a chance. But just judging by the opening weekend, it's not looking like that's going to be the case. However, one of the silver linings that I was kind of alluding to before is the fact that they're trying to almost reach out with this movie and find a different audience, something that I think a lot of these box office analysts haven't really taken into consideration. Florence Pugh, she described it as being more of like an A24 indie style assassin movie. And this kind of coincides with the latest teaser trailer that they put out for it. It's having more of an indie feel to it. The whole point of this trailer was to showcase all the independent filmmakers and editors and composers working on this movie to try to set it apart from other things, because a lot of those audiences who like independent films aren't necessarily interested in watching the latest Marvel movie, or at least that I think is the thought process that went into this campaign right here. And you can see from the like to dislike ratio, it seems to be pretty well received. So if they can capture that type of audience, the audience who aren't necessarily interested in just like a big budget superhero movie, but more grounded character movies, and they can bring them into the fold as well as Marvel movies, well, then it's possible that we could actually see some numbers at the box office that analysts haven't really predicted. However, I don't think it's necessarily going to be the most significant contribution. I also looked up A24 movies as far as their box office revenue goes. And I mean, even their most expensive ones, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Civil War, I mean, that's a considerable amount, but those also had a little bit more mainstream appeal than what their typical movies are. But you look at some of their other movies, if they were to add like 90 million, 80 million, 80 million, just factor that into the equation right there. It's possible, if this campaign works and you were able to get another $50 million out of it from people who are fans of A24 movies, willing to actually go see this movie because of the way they're presenting it, and it started to exceed their expectations as far as box office revenue goes, then it's possible, if the opening weekend is actually this low, that it would stand a chance of being profitable for Marvel and Disney. But there are a lot of things that have to go right for them. I'm not saying it's outside the realm of possibility, because like I showed you, even with Marvel movies, they have exceeded these expectations and gone on to be very successful with openings like this one. It's kind of a long shot, but I'm not necessarily writing them off just yet. I'd have to wait until the opening weekend actually happens and see what the second weekend box office hold is going to be for this movie and what the reception is to it for audiences. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think this has the potential to be a successful movie for Marvel and kind of like one of their few ones in recent years? Or do you think it's just going to be like a typical Marvel movie? It's going to come out, people aren't going to care, and then it loses money at the box office? Comment below and let me know what you think. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.